when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. Join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Hello there, book clubbers. Hope you're dancing. Hope you're having a good morning. I needed a little bit of a dance this morning. I'm feeling it. Feeling good. We're excited. We're doing Toll the Hounds, chapters 3 and 4 this week. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bachynski. Hi, Lana.
Hello, good morning. And just something that always picks me up that folks don't get to witness is almost every time with amazing consistency before we record, Jeff Kanata, in a weary Mario voice, says, "Here we go." Every time. And it warms my heart, gets me ready to get dancing.
There's an old story that people tell about working with Jack Lemmon.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've heard this before, but evidently, as the legend goes, Jack Lemmon, before every take, without fail, and this is one of history's most prolific film actors, but evidently, before every single take in every movie, he would go, "Magic time," and then they would roll cameras every single time, "Magic time." So I'm trying to have my own little tradition, but I appreciate you pointing that out. Hey, these are some fun chapters. I don't know how you feel, Lana, but I'm already getting the sense that Toll the Hounds is going to be something special. I just feel like some of these scenes already so early in this novel are among my favorite scenes in the entire series. Juicy, fun, different. Also, we're getting lots of favorite characters coming back, swinging back around we haven't seen in multiple novels.
Oh, yeah. I'm bracing for a banger,
This one feels already very, very good. We will get to all of that very soon. 2 chapters this week, as I said. But we like to start each episode with a non-spoiler topic, ideally sent in by you, our viewers, to dlcfeedback@gmail.com. This one is that. It comes in from Alex Banks, who writes, "Good morning. A quick suggestion for what to discuss as you kick off your reading of Toll the Hounds. This book features a ... unique narrator and narrative voice, guiding readers through the story. What movies, books, shows, or games do you like with particularly noticeable narrators in which their narration really influences your enjoyment of the story? Best, Alex." Thank you, Alex. This is a fun one. Obviously novels have a leg up in this regard because you're sort of there with the narrator. You're in that POV in a way that other medium have a hard time with. But it does happen, and it is notable when it does. And Lana, I'm curious how you would answer this question.
Yeah, there's 2 things that sort of immediately come to mind. One is a book and one is a TV show. The book that comes to mind is called Under Majordomo Minor. I think I've recommended it way back in the day before. It features a unique narrator in that they're kind of like a little whelp. They kind of suck. And you're in the head of this person who just sucks. And like their experience of the world and like going to try and see the girl that they like and their opinion of themselves versus how the person is clearly reacting to them. It is mwah. I love that weird internal, I don't like this guy, but we sure are hanging out for a bit of that book. I feel very bad that I always forget the author of that book, but I loved it. And it's a really quick read. And then the other thing that comes to mind is the show Fleabag.
Oh, love that show.
Just
so good.
Genius.
Phoebe
Waller-Bridge.
Yes.
If you have not seen Fleabag, it is definitely not for all ages, but very adult content throughout. But her breaking of the fourth wall, like so seamlessly and so like tiny, and like you'll get like full like staring at the camera, like talking to it for a bit, but also just like little eye flicks, almost like it's The Office, but it's just her head. It's so good and so funny. Like just laughing so hard to myself watching it alone on the couch. Excellent, excellent. Fleabag.
Great pull. I haven't thought about that show in way too long. I think it was only 2 seasons, but like just perfect show. Just so good. Boy, you bringing up under major
Domo Minor
under, I want to say like a modern major general. It makes me think of many books, Catcher in the Rye, Confederacy of Dunces, those kinds of books where you're with, and as I said, it's much more common in novels because you're sort of there with there's no barrier between you and the thoughts of the narrator. But some movies, I think the obvious movie to bring up that does this is The Usual Suspects, which is, sort of all about the narrator. And if I won't spoil that movie, but it's all about who's narrating the story. Another excellent one of Christopher Nolan's first movies, Memento, is
that
sort
one.
of all about how it's narrated, who is the narrator. Incredible movie that way. And I think, another one I'd put in this category is one of my favorites, The Big Lebowski.
Oh,
right?
So good.
Sort of like how you're sort of, you've got that Sam Elliott narration, but it's sort of from the POV of the POV of how the story is being told is very important. You have these kind of crazy flights of fancy from Lebowski himself. One of my favorite TV shows that does this. I don't know if you ever watched this show. It was short-lived, but glorious. A show called Pushing Daisies.
And that's Lee Pace is in it.
Lee Pace's like first breakout
I
role.
have not seen it, but I really like Lee Pace from The Fall, which I still want you to give a rewatch. But I've not seen Pushing Daisies. But there's got like a cult following, I feel.
It's so good. The premise is a guy can touch a dead body and it will come back to life for I think 1 minute.
And he can't speak with dead?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great.
It's basically that superpower solving crimes, but the show is so stylized and fun. It's a great one. But yeah, I mean, unreliable narrators are always such a great. Another one that comes to mind, Fight Club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Name of the Wind books also have that, where it's like the sort of external, what feels like the now retelling of the story that is the past, where you even get cutaways to like, oh, Denna was the most beautiful thing that everybody's ever seen, and then Bast will be like, wasn't her face crooked? Like there's little hints of that in there as well.
Yeah. A book I mentioned a while back that I read last year, the year before, was Black Tongue Thief, which is
reading
fun.
it.
It's good, right? It's fun because the POV, the narrator character is usually the sidekick of every other story you've ever heard. So the fact that you're inside that perspective the whole time is very fun.
Did you listen to the audiobook of the Black Tongue Thief? Because if we want to talk narration, like literally narrated by Christopher Bielman, who I was like, oh, I didn't realize he was like so Irish. He's not. But he does like this amazing, like the way that he actually like talks as the character while he's reading the audiobook is excellent. And he does such a great job. Even if you have already read it, just go listen to a clip. And I feel like you will be like, oh man, I feel like audiobooks often are like, they're good in that I can hear them clearly. This one feels like an enhancement. It is a performance of the book that enhances that narration in like a really tangible way. I really liked it.
At some point, I'm going to spend an entire opening segment of the show ranting about how I've been listening to the audiobook for the Brothers Karamazov, which is another great POV work, which is, I think, has become my new favorite audiobook experience of all time. Well, that'll be for another time. We got lots to get into this week because these chapters are juicy. So let's do it. Thank you again, Alex, for sending in your topic. Please send in more topics, folks. We love getting topics from you. These have been fun the last couple of weeks talking about other media. Anything you want us to talk about, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. You can post it on the Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord, or as a comment on the YouTube. All right, let's jump in. Spoilers starting now for chapters 3 and 4 of Toll the Hounds. We start with our boy Krup, who's eating himself some pie. Finally, a scene I can relate to.
Look, that was me for the last 3 days, honestly.
Just stuffing
pie.
his pie hole to the point of spitting it into the face of someone else.
So...
You know, finally I can see myself in Malazan world. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Do I want to be the great sword-wielding warrior? Yes. Am I the guy who stuffs pie into my face so much that it just spews out? That's probably more
also
likely.
Yes. Yeah.
Also yes.
Yeah.
So Misa's face gets a splattering of pie. It's salty, not happy, has to wipe it off. Not happy with Krup, and we get another scene of them having a face off
exchange. Yeah.
But then the second scene of chapter 3, I almost picked this entire scene as my favorite section. I wanted to read I read it twice. I got to the end of it and I was like, I just want to read that again. Just the joy of the Trigal-Tregild cart.
Chaos.
The
wagon. The carriage.
Yeah. Yes, carriage. Thank you. Just arriving out of nowhere. It is so cinematic. It is
action.
Oh, dude. I have such a perfect image of this in my mind. I know exactly where the camera. So here's one of the things that I reflected on in reading this scene multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, Lana. I don't know. This actually goes right along with what we were talking about with the non-spoiler section, which all about POV and narrator.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall in our journey through Malazan thus far a time when Erikson does what he does in this scene, which is the POV of this scene is the place itself, right? We are there before the arrival of the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it just pop into existence. We see the chaos. We're observers. We're sort of third person, omniscient observers. Well, I mean, not even omniscient. We're third person, sort of unnamed observers. We're just the camera, really.
Yeah.
We're the cinematic camera that's placed in this one spot. And then all of a sudden this rift opens. The cart comes tumbling through. People flying. A guy lands in, a garbage wagon, feet sticking out. Somebody else comes stumbling out. There's corpses falling off. It is such an awesome moment. But I feel like it's the first time that we weren't he could have done this scene as an action scene from one of the POVs of these new characters that all come tumbling out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't. He puts us in the place first. So we're sort of in this kind of serene, calm locale. And then all that is burst apart by the chaos of the Trigal-Tregild wagon arriving.
I think that he has done it, but not with something so bombastic. I think it's been shorter scenes that have been by the way, there's a meteor.
Yeah, right.
There's something and it's looked over this and people didn't know what was coming, but it's a little tiny little guy such that the relevance of it is more memorable through the following cascade of actions and things that happen to different people.
Right.
I also think there's been some times during battles where it sort of zooms out a little bit, but it's embedded within a chapter that is somebody's POV that kind of leaves their POV and sort of floats back into it again. I could be crazy, but this one definitely seems like the one that is the most, because it's a bombastic action sequence and you're not rooted in anything. You're just kind of what do you get? It feels very unique.
I feel like he does that a couple of times in these chapters. We'll get to another scene where I that felt like that to me. And it's so interesting because we're introduced to Faint, Glano Tarp, Recanto Ilk, Sweetest Sufferance, and Master Quell.
I love Sweetest Sufferance.
It's a great name, right?
Sweetest Sufferance and the one I'm not going to be able to pull because
Humble.
Yes.
What's this?
Humble Regard.
Humble Measure. Humble Measure.
Measure.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So good, right?
Yeah.
But I am so enamored with this little scene. You know, having come all the way from, what is it, Deghouse Gates, where we were like, I don't know about this Trigal Trig.
Oh yeah, that's TTG.
Yeah, and now I'm just like, I love anytime they appear. The chaos and skin of their teeth, arrival, and they've clearly been through something. And the way this is described with such like dispassionate, disconnected, sort of just factual recounting of what's happening. It's because it's crazy, but it's very the prose is very restrained and just observational of what's happening. It's just like, this is the chaos that these guys arrive with. I love it. I love it.
It's beautiful. It's a great scene.
Anyway, they all tumble out. There's corpses and
not corpses, limbs.
that are still moving.
Yeah, moving limbs. Thing careens around a corner. The carriage itself just smashing into buildings and smashing the plaster. Oh, it's very tactile.
One of the guys opens the door and like smoke is behind him, and somebody else is staggering all blood. It feels like why? I don't know why I always reference Ghostbusters. But it feels like the Ecto One, like slamming, and the guys tumbling out and ghosts and everything. It's so great. And then they all just like go into the bar and order drinks.
I know, excellent.
It's so great. Anyway, one of my favorite scenes of the week. So we're back to Krup, who is now got so much pie stuck in his teeth that he needs some delicious wine to swirl around and spit out.
Just like an old vintage wine to cleanse your mouth and spitting it on the floor of the bar.
Yeah.
Despicable Krup.
Just treating it like, swill.
Yeah.
And it's this crazy expensive, extremely rare wine.
Some rare wine. And then like, even the way he talks about it being like, oh, I just had to clear my mouth and now I'm talking again. And that makes me thirstier. Like, I'm obviously not getting right what he says, but him ending it with, what else can I do but take another sip? And Mies being like, you swallow that thing or you're dead. Like, that's it. The rage boiling from Mies on the other side after being just like pied on.
Just pied on. Yes. So we find out Mallet arrives and says, hey, I healed up Murillo. He's going to be okay. Can't dance for a minute, but he'll be okay.
Dance. Wink.
Yeah, exactly. The horizontal mambo, if you know what I mean. Krup is like, hey, we're going to find out who put a contract out on you guys, who's trying to kill you. And Mies is like, I wonder if it's that Malazan embassy that we just established. Maybe they're after you guys. And Krup is like, no, it's the Assassin's Guild. The Assassin's Guild is behind it. We're going to figure this out. He's like, okay, it's time to go. Who's paying for my meal?
Well, the Assassin's Guild's going to figure it out. In the meantime, I've arranged escorts for you. And just trust me. This balance that Krup strikes between obviously just being able to do things and being hyper competent.
Yes.
And then being just like this grosso. So people are like, no, we have to associate with you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guy. Gah.
And I love how we know that to a certain extent it's an act, right? He's throwing people off by being a kind of a
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba, perfect. But also, I think he kind of also is a Chumbawamba. Yeah. It's great. All right, we check back in with two of my new favorite characters for this novel, Scorch and Lefty, who are waiting by the quayside. A lovely word that I just learned. They're working on their list. They're trying to get the debtors and extract the money from them. And they think, hey, this is where people flee the city, right here on the edge of the water. So this is the perfect place to stand.
Stake out.
Yeah, exactly. Lefty eats a conch, And there's this discussion about meat from the conch and whether meat should have blood in it or not, which I thought was funny.
Mhm. I also I love that because they're talking about this eating a conch, and then like once they're done eating it, they like throw the shell where there's like just hundreds down there. I'm like, I guess this is the conch zone. I guess they're
Total
near the
conch zone.
That's what you get being quayside, but
Yeah. We eat conches down by the quayside, everybody. That's what we do. Just toss your conch right over the side, the quayside.
the quayside, yeah.
It reminded me of those. You ever been to one of those bars or restaurants that like have peanut shells on the ground, and they give you peanuts, you can just throw your shells on the ground?
Yeah, there's like an esports bar in OC called Heroes and Villains that had it. It was a peanut haven.
And I love this musing that they go on about the old women that would just like stand under the dock, just hoping that some fish would fall through the cracks so they could catch them. And they had these pokers that they would just stab them like
garbage,
yes,
sort of.
yeah.
And then the idea that if enough fish didn't fall down, they'd just be like, and they fight each other,
just poke each other. And Scorch's grandma used to have poke marks on her arm when she came home.
Yeah,
just beautiful, imaginative, evocative image. It's so good, so good. And it's funny because they're painted in this scene like knuckleheads, that are in the wrong spot. Like, what are they even doing here, wasting their time? And then we find out later, like, no, that's exactly where they needed to be. And it's perfect. Anyway,
I like the idea of them being like, oh, they seem like knuckleheads. I'm like, put that quote on the back of the book for so many. Oh, they seem like knuckleheads.
Right. Yeah.
They are not.
They are not. And also they are.
And also they are. A series of hyper competent knuckleheads.
That's right. Okay, so the next scene in chapter 3. Well. Fancy meeting you here, Mr. Gruntle. Had no idea we were ever going to see Gruntle again.
Gruntle had, except for a couple times where I was like, oh yeah, what about, has like almost left my mind. Yeah. And then as soon as it was like arms that were like fully tattooed, I'm like, who wants to cover their arms? I got some ideas.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The tiger man himself, Gruntle, who evidently has been just kind of working as a, that's how we met him, right? Originally, he was an escort for caravans, right?
He wasn't like a mercenary. He was, like a
hired
security
bodyguard.
Yeah,
exactly. And evidently still in that line of work, although not quite as successful because literally everyone else he was with is dead. And the carriages are still going. The dead drivers of the carriages still driving the carriages.
It's like, all the living people that you sent me with, definitely dead. The reveal of like, what, as the carriages are driving, just some people try and jump on and like rob them. And then they're like, the hood drops down. They're like, skelly bones. And like flee away. And Gruntle just sort of standing up and being like, yeah, we got skelly bones and a tiger man. And people be like, you can keep them. I don't know what's in there. Enjoy.
Yeah.
And then the crows come and just are eating the faces of the corpse as they're driving.
So good.
Also, as a like very separate thing, a lot of like crow stuff in these first couple or these chapters. Yeah.
Crows having symbolism. I wonder. Interesting. So they arrive at the estate of this Cyric character, who is the one that hired them. And Gruntle's not too happy. He's like, I told you we needed more people for this job. You said no, and now everybody's dead but me. Still cool because I can command the dead now. It's pretty sweet. But he's like, I need that full payment, or else I'm gonna blacklist you from the guild. And we find out that this is the Caravanserai Guild, which is a sort of a competitor to the Trigal Trade Guild. So he's been working for the competition.
Mm-hmm.
But Cyric pays him, and then Gruntle heads home, and he's like,
he releases the souls of the dead he had employed.
Right. Go about your way, dead people. Yeah. He's expecting to be harassed by the High Priestess of Trake, He's like, I don't have to deal with all these people who worship me and the god that I am have to work for.
Yeah, all my adoring fans are going to be outside. It's going to be such a hassle.
Yeah. And when I scream my battle cry, she can hear me. It's like, no matter where I am.
So it's not like I can avoid her.
Yeah.
I have to turn off my location sharing.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to stay off the main roads
Yeah.
or I'm going to get pissed and maybe kill some people.
Or maybe kill everybody.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not, hey, listen, I'm not responsible for my road rage. And he kind of goes to the side street and runs into the Treigild carriage. He's like, I heard these guys actually even pay better than the Caravanserai Guild does. Maybe I can get a little, maybe I can level up my income.
Get in on that action.
That's right. And he's like, also, they have sick horses.
That they weren't scared of him.
Yeah, these horses don't get scared of my stripy arms and terrifying fangs.
The fact that I look like a tiger man. These horses are great. I also just love that he's like, these horses are crazy. And I'm like, I know where they've been. Yeah, you're not scary, dog.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've been through literal hell.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know, maybe I can get me one of these horses, or I don't know, a dead one, because I can command the dead now.
I like that he's like, I can do this and it's cool, but also I don't really know what that means. Seems bad.
Yeah. Loving the fact that Gruntle is back.
Yeah.
The next scene,
but
another character's back.
The one thing I wanted to say about Gruntle is he also was like, in this last fight, he lost the last two people who had been with him since the last book,
Capustan.
Capustan.
Yeah.
So all of his sort of allies that we might have previously known, he may be the last survivor.
All the people that packed that building full of seeping bodies. You know, his friends. His real buddies. All the times we had packing a building full of seeping bodies to the point where it expanded.
And then exploded and collapsed.
So another character that I didn't expect to see again, Torvald Nam, who has has a long history with our boy Karsa Orlong. They were pals. They broke out of prison together, I think 3 times, not just once. He got his throat slit, healed from that. I think last time we saw him, he was like, "Hey, Karsa, I'm heading back to Darujistan. You should swing by." So I'm wondering if Karsa is going to swing by Darujistan. But it looks like Torvald made his way here to Darujistan, and literally like paddled up to the shore where Scorch and Lefty are like, "Hey, pal, you're one of the people on our list.
Something."
Yeah. We find out that Torvald had a dinner with Nander Garab, and it was thought that it was just, hey, I'll pick up the check. But Nander Garab is like, plus interest, and now he owes him like an absurd amount of money.
That's classic Garab.
Classic Garab. Yeah. Oh, don't you even worry about. Have whatever you like. Appetizers, more of those. Nander Garab. So Torvald is like, hey, give me one night. Don't kill me. Don't apprehend me. Don't take me in. Give me one night. I'll get the money. And Scorch and Lefty are like, all right, one night. You got this one night. And then Torvald's like, suckers.
Well, so I like that they're in the alley. That he gets got caught by those guys, and then he recognizes them, and they're like, okay, give us the money right now. And he's like, well, I don't have it. They're like, well, then you're dead. He's like, then he convinces them, and at the very end of the scene, he's like, I'm so glad they didn't find all of the I assume precious belongings like strapped to his back or whatever. There's an implication that he has something on his person of great value that they could have taken, but instead he's like, I guess I'll go talk to Garab eventually.
Yeah. Cool that he's back involved in our tale. Then we meet up with the aforementioned Humble Measure, who is we get the backstory of Humble Measure, who has a really horrible, tragic backstory, whose father was the latest in a long line of owners of the Eldra Ironmongers, who operated in One Eye Cat. He has a mother who was raped and murdered, along with his sisters. He had to watch that happen. Not a great childhood. And has decided that he is going to do something about it. Really, he and his staff were tortured, and they were rescued by someone named Jorik Sharplance, a mercenary leader.
So, if I have this correct, like a couple little details is, his mom was like sold effectively into slavery, but then I assume there's something about he was like adopted as somebody's son when he was 8 years old. So he had like a good life that he was building into as going to be the heir to this iron forge or refinery or whatever it is. And then he's like, there was this empire, which I assume the Malazan Empire, came in and started like taking over everything, destroying everything, and that whole future was lost to him. So then he was sort of captured with other people, his entire staff, and very abused and put in a bad spot by the old Malazan, and then rescued by this mercenary who was like, this sucks. Let's get you out of here.
Yeah. And he has decided that he is going to stand up against the tyranny of the Malazan imperialists. And he generates lots of money as the head of this ironmonger office.
Because it came back around. He like escaped with the help of Jorik, whatever, showed up in Darujistan and basically started building from the ground up another iron empire. So he sort of came full circle, but rather than it being the straight line of like, I was adopted and then everything was fine. It was like abuse and trauma, and now I'm the owner anyway. So
and underneath where the offices of his iron place are is a secret lair. He's got a secret underground lair.
He's a superhero.
It's got records going back 600 years. And someone comes in with this wax book, which is such a cool way to have messages that you can erase and no one can know what it is. It's so cool. He puts the wax book down, and it's the contract for the Assassins Guild. He is the one. Humble Measure is the one that was trying to kill our boys in the first chapter. The bridge burners, former bridge burners, and of course finds out that was unsuccessful. And then the wax is melted, so no one will know. Thought that was cool.
I agree.
All right, so then we head over to the docks where Lady Spite and the crew of the monkey crew, the bakall crew, land in the docks, and everybody's watching like super hot chick,
the most
crazy
regal,
monkey crew,
the most regal, most beautiful green silken, one leg up like Captain Morgan on the front of that thing. You're like, oh my God, the monkey is not going to go well, but somehow eases right into the docks. She just sort of descends below, and they're like, where's she going? Meanwhile, the bakall are like, just haphazardly throwing ropes over, and I'm picturing the dock hands like, I gotta catch one of them. And eventually it all gets strapped down. Everybody's watching and being like, this is crazy that this is happening. They managed to get like the gangplank out and put from the thing, but it's all just the monkeys. And then they try and get at them, and they're just like throwing stuff at them and just causing chaos, that they're like, what do we do with this? Like, it's 12 gold. If you can just throw it over the side. Like, I absolutely adore that scene of like silliness and chaos and beautiful.
Agree. I love it so much. The image in my mind is so clear of the CG animated monkeys just completely having this chaotic nonsense Oh, I love it. I love it.
The chaotic nonsense, but also somehow putting the sails up while they're running around
Yeah.
screaming. Also
Like doing
somehow...
yeah, they're doing it. They're pulling it off. I think I mentioned this last time we had a bakall monkey scene, but it's the million monkeys on typewriters somehow making Shakespeare. It's just like they're doing it. They shouldn't be able to do this.
Do they know that they're doing it? Or is it?
Yeah. Amazing. So good. So this is the boat. This is the boat where Lady Spite rescued Crocus and Salara and Mapo. This is the boat with Iskarol Pust and Mogora and Barathol Mekar and my boy Char, who makes me just tear up. Just like mentioning Char makes me emotional. But this is the boat we haven't seen for a while. But Lady Spite rescued everybody in her dragon form
and cut her.
Rescued Crocus, right?
Oh yeah, you said Crocus, right?
Yeah. And they got on the boat to Drustan. So here they are arriving. Crocus is super excited to be back home. Wants to get off the boat and warn his friends that there's something bad about to happen.
Also tell them oh yeah, people don't call me Cutter here. That's my cool name that I made. And they're going to be surprised and probably a little disappointed.
Yeah. And Spite's like, Crocus, buddy, chill. Just stay on the boat. Just wait. She's also, recommending to Mapo, hey, Mapo, you really need to get over to Lether because that's where your boy
Icarium,
is. And Mapo's like, I don't know if I'm going to follow your recommendations, Lady Spite. And Mogora says something to Iskarol Pust about how his nemesis is on this continent.
It's got to be Krup.
Oh, maybe. I didn't think that, but that's great. I love
two
that.
Little weirdies.
Two little
who both
oddly
ride
donkeys
or like donkeys.
Yeah.
That's got to be a nemesis.
I love how Iskarol is always talking, his thoughts out loud. And he's like, how are you reading my mind?
And he's like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. It's like, oh my God, it's almost,
It's so funny.
It's like, I know that's his thing. And still when he does it, I love it. It never gets old.
The greatest. So Spite is like, no, Shadow is not going to restore. There's no balance going to happen. It doesn't matter. Shadow doesn't do balance. Also, Shadow Throne is not a great god. I'm not a fan of the Shadow Throne. Barathol says, I'm going to go explore the city with Char. We're going to have a little buddy moment just walking through the city. Mm-hmm. And Spite's like, there's some not so great people here, some alarming personages in the city. And she's like, I'm going to go wander around alone. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our old faves back, everybody converging in Jerujistan at this time. Pretty great. Barathol and Char follow Mapo into his room. Mapo's already packed up, ready to go. Barathol's like, hey, I can help you out. I'll go help you find Icarium. Mapo's like, no.
Traveling with a buddy. I could be buddy. We could be
pals. Mapo's like, no more pals for me. I'm not putting anybody else in harm's way. Also, I'm not going to do what Spite suggested. So,
which is so funny because we're all like, Mapo, come on.
Yeah.
She's not wrong.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, no, she's right. Barathol's like, well, then what am I going to do with my whole life? What do I do? What do I do next?
He's like, have you considered tourism? It's like a cool city over there.
Yeah. And Mapo's like, hey, people always need guards. You could do that. And he hugs Char, who tries to dance with them. And I was like, ugh, getting emotional.
Cute.
So adorable. So they head out. And then we cut over to Salara and Crocus, who have their sort of, friends with benefits situation going on. Mm-hmm. And Crocus, she's like, hey, Crocus, do you want me to come with you to your hometown? He's like, yeah, totally. You got to meet all my buddies at the Phoenix Inn. This is going to be great. And she's like, they don't want to meet me. I'm not we just had a sort of convenient fling. We're not like boyfriend girlfriend. I mean,
are we? But like the way that he describes it, she's like, okay, you're gonna deal with some complicated stuff, and I do feel like I'll just complicate that. So why don't you go alone? And he goes. She notices that he seems like visibly relieved, and he's like, okay, but definitely come tomorrow. Like everybody knows where the Phoenix Inn is, and so that little moment of the relief, I think this is such an interesting. I don't know. It feels like a very resonant coupley moment, especially if you're like undefined. What are we? Of I haven't been back to my city in so long, and I'm like a fully new person, and there is a lot, and even that like. Probably is eagerness to introduce her to things, but her self-worth is so low that she's like, he doesn't have, like immediately her inner monologue is like, he doesn't need to explain some like overweight ex-horde and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I don't think he sees you that way. Right.
But also she knows that he's in love with somebody else.
Well, yeah, that's true. And she's like, I have this understanding about the relationship, but I feel, but there's like this, it is such a very human tension, and like it feels like the problems that they're feeling or the tensions that they're experiencing feel just really grounded in a way that I like.
Yeah. It's like we've been dating for a while and now it's Christmas. Do you like want to come to the Christmas dinner? It's weird, you know. Mm-hmm. So she decides, you go by yourself. I'm going to hang out with Berthol and Char. We'll go do the town. We'll take the town in. And they're like, Berthol's like, let's pay the docking fees before Lady Spite like just murders everyone. Let's just make this okay. And Salara's like, I'll pay for it.
I love that they were like waiting until it was night so that it was like, we're not making a scene, and they go out there and it's like, there's 12 guards still staring at like 100 screaming bakall. You're like, okay, well, I got the gold. 1 second. Sorry about that.
So great. So much for low
profile.
Profile. Yeah. All right. So if you thought the previous characters were a surprise to tap back into, ladies and gentlemen, Rallick Nom.
Woo!
Old sleepy Rallick, just in hanging out in the Azath house for literally 7 novels.
So ridiculous. I mean, it's one of those things that I think every book we've been like, what's going on with that guy? It feels very satisfying. And, for me, it's like waking up to a kick to my heart. Well, I love that.
What's the thing that finally wakes him up? He gets kicked in the head. And Race is like, why did you kick me in the head? He's like, I don't know. It seemed like the thing to do.
It's so good. This is the scene that I almost pulled as like, I just want to read this whole thing of like Race's whole like, what? But like actually sort of distant in that way of being like, these are just, it makes sense. But everything he
he's
says
also
is
like kind of vulnerable too. He's like, I guess you'll leave me and I'll be alone again. But because like everybody else
you
left,
want to make.
There was that guy who was here for a while and just like slept over for a few nights and then he left. And the chick you brought in here, she got up and left. And I guess you'll leave and then I'll be alone and it's fine. It's fine.
It's so good. Oh, I love it. So the scene is mostly Race being sad and annoying. And Rallick being like, what? And he's like so weak because he's been unconscious forever. But then they describe Vorkin?
Vorkin, yeah.
As not having left, but having escaped, which I think was the scene that we saw in the prologue. Is like
the demon, Chilbaeus seeing the person
shadow
escape,
or something. Something
that
escaped.
was Vorkin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's Vorkin who seemed like pretty logical and rational when we first met her in the first book, just being like head of the Assassin's Guild. She's dangerous, but she almost was immediately like knocked out and thrown into the house. And so I'm very eager to see more of whatever she has to bring to the table.
Well, if I recall, she was trying to kill Baruch, right? Isn't she the one that Crocus throws the bricks at her head and stops her from killing Baruch? And then for some reason, even though Rallick is friends with Baruch, he saves her instead of killing her, right?
But I didn't think that she had like planned. In my memory, and I'll admit it, it's probably wrong. There was like the Assassin's Guild and how they run things, and then there were factions within the Assassin's Guild that were not doing what the Assassin's Guild wants. Like that's not like the rules of it being an assassin in the guild in the city. And Vorkin was like, oh hell no. And so had talked with people and was like sort of listening to two sides of a story. And the parts I remember of her are being like very true to whatever the guild rules that she had set were, being disappointed in people. But I don't remember anything with Baruch. So you might be right, but I don't remember.
I think I recall her having the job to kill Baruch. She runs into the room to kill Baruch, and Crocus throws the bricks. That might be not Vorkin, but I think it was Vorkin.
You're probably right.
Anyway, and she was knocked out, and then like Rallick drags her to the Asath house rather than letting her die. She was like
bleeding out.
Yeah. So maybe she's stabbed by somebody else. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, interesting that you're right, that she's out. And Rallick, remember Rallick rubbed his skin with a totterol dust.
I forgot about that.
Which like at the time, we didn't even realize how big of a deal that was because we didn't know much about a totterol yet.
Yeah.
But he is like a
now
totterol
he's
infused.
Been steeping in it.
Yeah.
He's like Karsa Orlong without the muscles or size.
Right. But he Race is like, so you're leaving? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go.
I think I pulled this section there as my favorite.
Okay, don't spoil it. So Rallick Dom back out into the world. Then chapter 3 ends with an interesting scene where we're sort of from Krup's POV and like checking in on all the people around the city, which I thought was such a cool scene. Vorkin and Rallick Dom and Crocus and Barathol and everybody sort of like telling us what everybody's up to, just sort of like setting the
tone. That's what I'm saying. Like
the chessboard,
Yeah, the chessboard. It's that's the thing where it's like I feel like these chapters are like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a banger. Woo! Just every little thing is
baby.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So good. All right, chapter 4. Another scene that I read multiple times because it's so awesome. And it made me think of the Treigal scene we talked about, where this almost feels like a detached narrator observing Traveler.
Yes.
Who also has a chaotic, almost Treigal-esque appearance in a place. Like this, he's tied to the tiller of a boat. Don't know why.
I had an idea of why.
Okay.
My thought was like, he's like, it seems like it's just him in like a big boat.
Dead bodies.
Yeah, dead bodies. Him, big boat.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to dock it? No, you're going to ram it into the shore. And if you are not tied down like a seatbelt, you're going to just fly off the thing. Or
he's
you're
just
going
a
to break your
crash test
neck.
dummy.
And so he straps himself to it so it like can kind of like crash onto the shore. And then he could be like, chop, chop, chop. And like just fall and hit in the thing. So it's like the safest way for him to get off the big boat without being smashed into the rocks. Was my impression.
Right. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's perfect. And it's such an awesome arrival because he does crash into the shore. He has to cut himself free as waves.
As the boat's like being sucked immediately back into the water.
Yeah.
It seems like he's going to land and he hits the rocks and you're like, oh, he did it. But then it's like he hits the rocks and then slumps over the side into the water anyway. And you're like, oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Didn't quite stick the landing.
Pulls himself up on shore, like head in his hands, just unhappy. And for some reason, even though there's no trees, leaves are falling from the sky.
Mucky, rotten leaves.
Yeah, what an image. What an image. And he's just like, and then Bear grabs his head, just bites the back of his head. And he's like pulls out this kick-ass sword, decapitates the bear.
Vengeance.
Sick arrival. Traveler, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all we've seen of Traveler is we've sort of heard his name bandied about, but then he shows up on Drift Avali, right? And relieves
he'd been there.
everybody. And it's like, don't worry, I got this. I will protect the throne. He sort of relieved all the Tistandi who were there, right?
I thought that he was part of the crew of Tistandi who were there. And then the people who guarded the throne, it was like Hood showed up and killed everybody with the rope. Not Hood. Blah, 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 blah.
Cotillion. Yeah.
Showed up and killed everybody with the rope.
Right.
And I guess he was like, yeah, everybody go except me. But I got the impression that he was there the whole time, not that he had shown up there.
But it's interesting that he has left and is here, wherever here is, this crazy place where leaves fall from the sky. And
go ahead.
I think that the boat full of corpses is like some of the people that he was with, right? Some of the Tistandi.
Yeah, I don't have any other suspicions. It seems like, they went through something. Who knows? The only other thing that I think have previously have suspected about him, and I'm not going to get the name right, but we suspected, or I suspect certainly, that he is Cotillion,
right?
Shadow Throne, third boy,
Traveler,
Dasim,
right?
Altor. That's not him,
right? Yes, because yes, right.
Yeah,
interesting.
There he was. I'm sure I don't have the name right, but I'm pretty sure it starts with a D. And it's not Decembalakis, but it's their third buddy, who endless scene where it was like all of them, and they're like, they kind of had this whole thing, and he was betrayed by them in some way. He was left out of their scheming.
I mean, his sword is literally called Vengeance.
Yeah,
not a coincidence. But he has not had water in 3 days, real parched. So what does one do? You wheeze the juice. Grab the.
You rip out a bear's heart.
Bear heart.
Oh, I feel like that would just make you ill. But the way it's described, of like he cuts the heart out, and it's like a sponge. But like I'm picturing like a water skin where it's like got the ventricles, and it's like dumping the blood out of the heart ventricles,
like a dangling straw. Like,
well, then it talks about that he does like afterwards on the little ventricle-y things. Ooh.
And then he like licks his fingers.
And then he's like, delicious. Now, and then he eats the whole thing, and he's like, ugh, finally. Anyway, time to put my scalp back together.
Bandages the back of his head. And then just, I'm here, wanders off. Just an incredible scene, start to finish. I mean, what an introduction to this character. I mean, I guess he's been introduced before, but this feels like the real introduction of how badass Traveler is. And he's described as being of average height, not a big dude. He's
always
awesome.
been gaunt.
Yeah.
He's extra gaunt now, but he's always been gaunt. Yeah.
So good. All right. Then we head over to Nander and the Team Emo. As I like to call him, Teemo. It's just the morose wanderers.
Sad Boys Club.
Yeah. Namander and Destra and Shintik and Nananda and Clip, who are walking across this farmland. Namander is musing about. I picked this as one of my selections. I love this little musing about how the only god is time.
Yeah, that's one of my sections too. But you read it.
It's one of my favorite themes in fiction is time and how inevitable, and I think Shakespeare says the hard-hearted arbitrator time. It's one of my favorite themes in all of all of literature, and I think it's this beautifully summed up here. And Namander's kind of got some guilt about killing Fade. He hears her voice in his head. Mm-hmm. She's like, you didn't even have the guts to throw me out the window. Somebody else had to do it. she mentions the writings of a woman from Carcanus.
Yeah.
And that the Tistendi, including Andarist, were afraid to speak of her. Her name is forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what that's about.
Do we think that he's actually hearing fate?
No, I don't. I think he's got guilt. I don't know. I don't think she's speaking to him from beyond the grave. I think he's just.
So he's like making up things that she knew, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. She could be speaking to him from beyond the grave. I mean, anything's possible, but I didn't get that sense. I didn't get the sense that it was real. I get the sense that it was more his own
inner
guilt
monologue,
and his own psychosis, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But they find this crazy farm, another incredible image I've never heard before. This farm where there are these corpses that are sort of propped up like scarecrows, but they're leaking this fluid.
Black fluid.
It's like not blood, but somebody says like
it's probably blood in it.
Could be.
I don't know. It doesn't look like blood, but probably blood.
I'm not going to say there's no blood.
But I also love that they're like, oh, what do they have? Like a dozen scarecrows? That's crazy. And then they get close, like, oh, they're just corpses. Corpses? Yeah. Are they dead?
Are they still alive and just dripping, feeding the ground with their ooze?
And then they like crest a ridge and they're like, oh, that is like so many more than 12 or like whatever it is. Yeah. It's like fields of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nander has this great line that he's evidently quoting Andarist, saying, all possible cruelties are inevitable. All conceivable crimes have been committed.
Yeah, I pulled that as a single sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. It's great to weave it in, but it's like them. There's like another line that's in there. It's rolled in there too. That's talking about like ignoring things or like being like, oh, there's maybe need for this, or maybe it wasn't this scene. But it's like, it's really well said. His sort of internalizations and the conversations they have with this horrifying scene combined with Clip being like, speed it up, losers. Is like,
he's always in front, like waiting on you. And then they just like stumble on this like idyllic farm town. It's like, what? That was horrible corpse fields.
Idyllic farm town, but like everybody greeting them is like, with the
creepos.
Black around their mouths,
and on their hands and feet. Yeah, this real creepo with long gray hair and his burgundy robe, bare legs. He's like, hey. He can't speak their language, so he talks in broken Tistendi. And he's like, come
and love guests.
Yeah. Oh, super horrific, creepy scene.
Yeah.
Talks about the glory of the dying god that is in Bastion. Gee, I wonder who that could be. And Clip's like, I want to see a dying god.
I know. And they're like, is Bastion like on the way to where we're going? And he's like, shut up, I'm the boss.
We're going to see it. We're stopping at the world's biggest ball of twine.
Look, it's dying. This is a limited time opportunity.
We're stopping, we're taking some pictures, and we're moving on. It's fine. It's not that far out of our way. All right, so then we check in with the Seerdomin, who is walking as he does on his daily pilgrimage, wearing his robes so that everybody still hates him as some sort of
penance.
Yeah. Flagellation.
Yeah.
And this woman calls him benighted. He's like, I don't go by that name anymore. I was like, oh, interesting. Benighted, but not with a K. Not like he was a knight, but benighted, like
night is upon
nighttime. Yeah. And she talks to him about the Redeemer and how the Redeemer has claimed Seerdomin as his chosen to guard them.
Is that Itkovian?
I think it is Itkovian. I think I don't know if we skipped over one or if it's coming, but we get a lot of discussion about the Barrow, the Great Barrow, and that Itkovian was buried there, and that he is sort of he's baking. He's like he's becoming a god, right?
Yeah.
He's in the barrow, like in 45 minutes, he's going to be a delicious god.
Yeah, and a little time to cool.
Yeah,
slice
poke
it
him
open
with a fork, make sure he's all right. Yeah, but I think basically the Seerdomin is like, I don't want to be the chosen.
Yeah,
She's like,
so
sorry.
he goes and prays, and he sits there and he says like the same prayer every single time he's there. Somebody comes up and talks to him, and he's like, yeah, well, no, though, what you said.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever bothered him before. And through this conversation, they're like, oh, you're this chosen one. Nobody ever bothers you. And there's no crime here because all of us see what you are, see what you've done, believe in you as somebody we want to follow. And so we tell everybody to back off.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you should have just attacked me. I don't want to. This isn't the life I wanted. And then he gets angry and say,
he's like, I just like playing board games at the pub.
I don't want any expectations of me.
Come on.
I already work for a zealot.
Then Endest, we have this sort of series of scenes with Endest, Salon, who is kind of remembering discussions with Animander Rake,
which is so funny because every single time I read Endest, and I think I talked about this when we were introduced to him, this book, of like something about his name is like feels like Andarist, Animandarist. It feels, and like Salon is kind of like he feels like wrapped up somehow, and I just don't know if it's similar syllables or what.
Well, I think he was one of Animander's right hand man. He's kind of like the old guard who has seen it all and just wants to retire, and doesn't want to have to worry about this stuff anymore. But Animander is still, things feel like they're at a inflection point with Animander. Yeah, and I think that's what these scenes are kind of about.
Yeah.
Is
so it's flashbacks to sort of like his first mission from him.
Well, we find out that now you might have to step me through this because I suspect I don't have it straight in my head, but Animander somehow has TM's blood now. Did we see that happen? Or know why?
Quick cue for a refresher. Who TM?
Isn't TM like the OG dragon? Isn't TM like the dragon that spawned all the other dragons? The Elent?
Yes.
That is like the top of the food chain of the Elents. Like the TM's blood flows in all the dragons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
people seem
goes
surprised
in this temple.
by that. Go ahead. Sorry. No.
That's like a big deal that he has. So Endest goes in the temple. There's all these women and like
in ecstasy.
They're
in like having a fit.
Yeah, and people are like, "Can we be quiet, please? Can we calm them down a little bit?" I don't know what all this
slippery.
I'm gonna have to clean this up.
Should we stop with?
Do I need to get a mop or? So then we sort of, Endest wakes up in his room, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna continue thinking about this, and he asks Rake if Itkovian becoming a god inside the barrow is a good thing. Or no, Rake asks him. He's like, "Hey, is Itkovian going to be a god like a good thing?" And just like, I don't know. And Rake's like, "Okay, get Spinach to come, but like, don't rush him. He can come at his convenience." And then Endest thinks back to when Rake talked to his mom. They go and confront Mother Dark herself, and it does not go well.
Yeah,
she's pissed that he has TM's blood.
Yeah.
So is this why Rake is a soul taken? Because he's got dragon blood now? Because but all of his brothers are soul taken too, right?
Mm-hmm. I know that people have talked to us before about like Elaint versus soul taken and like what that differences are. And this is where I'm like, oh, I don't know. This was one of the scenes
I
where I was like, it's really fuzzy in my brain. So
right, and I don't know how far back this flashback is. Like, is this so far back that it's sort of the origin of all of the? Because Mother Dark literally is like, I forsake all my children. You're all dead to me. I'm not going to hang out with you anymore.
Was there something about? Oh no, that doesn't make sense. No, I don't know. I would have to.
It's such a big deal that Endest literally falls to his knees and screams out, and it's the moment that he lost hope.
Yeah.
Big deal. But I just don't know where to place it in the history of Animander Rake. Yeah.
I also don't. There's like certain things scratching at my brain about literally, I think of it almost like a Olympian, like Greek mythology, where like whoever Animander's dad is was like messing with everybody's sort of messing with other people, and that's why there's siblings, half siblings, and so maybe it has to do with that. Animander with like TM's blood, it doesn't make sense that his mom would be like, hey, you have TM's blood, because that would be like she would have to be part of that. But I don't know how dragons spawn really, so maybe TM's blood is like he killed TM.
Right. I don't know how he got TM's blood either. Did he sleep with TM? I don't know.
Or like kill? Or like, what does that mean? I think it's one of those things that I'll be like, well, look back to the scene and be like, oh, this is why it matters. The things that I got from it are Endest's relationship with Animander, of being like, he was kind of like a whelp that's like, not me, sire. Not me, my lord. I'm not the guy. And he's like, you're the guy now, baby.
Yeah.
Wait for me. And his loyalty, like there's like something, there's like a bit about loyalty in there, I think.
Maybe he says, is it Spinach or Endest? No, yeah, it's Endest who he's like, you're going to hold until the end, right? And he's like, and then you're going to betray me. He's like, wait, I don't want to do that. He's like, you have to. Yeah. You're going to do it, right?
You'll know when.
Yeah.
And so that was the important part. Animander having a bad relationship with Mother Dark. And there's like something I assume will become clear if we forgot it or we'll learn it later. I assume that not knowing it right now is not like the most critical piece, other than we know Endest is supposed to and expects to betray Animander. And now we cut to like now, and he's like old. Yeah. He's like, time's a ticking for my betrayal to happen.
Right. And we also, I think, are gathering the animosity between the mother and the son here, and all the sons, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of Spinach Durav, we check in on Spinach, who's had a little rendezvous with a high priestess, who's super happy about it. She keeps thanking him. And he's like, yeah, baby, I like you, baby, but not as much as my sword. I love this sword. Don't worry. Ladies are just a distraction. I really love you, sword.
If there's only one thing I want to oil up.
That's right.
It's you.
That's right. I will. No, never mind. So Spinach asks if Mother Dark has forgiven them, and this high priestess lady is like, how can you even ask that question? Usually Tistendi think about things forever and just mull it over, and are paralyzed with ennui.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally leaves, and Spinach is like, sword, you're my number one in my heart. And and he heads over to the tavern because he's ready for his daily game of whatever that game is called, Kef Tanar, with the Seerdomin. He's like, I'm worried about that Seerdomin guy. He's preoccupied with something. Maybe I'll take a little detour and check in with the Priestess of the Redeemer at her house and see if I can maybe put in a good word for my buddy Seerdomin and, maybe help him out because we're such good buds.
The thing I think was interesting, and I forget if it was revealed with the Priestess conversation, but he knows that he goes on this walk, but he doesn't know that the Barrows are not within the Shroud of Darkness in the city.
Right. Yes. And he's like, can I do anything? And she's like, no, you can't. Seerdomin is in it.
So he takes this detour. He goes down this alley that has like a special handprint on the door, which he like knocks and has to like. There's like a little sort of child in there. He's like, I'm gonna be like 5 minutes. Just can I talk to her?
Yeah.
So she runs in and it's like, okay, you can come chat to her. And the priestess is described as like a massively overweight woman.
Yeah.
Sort of reclining in this chair.
Yeah. She's got cataracts and she's yeah.
Do we think this is a new person?
Oh, interesting. I did, but
I was trying to think of other people that we knew from Capistan who might have like really known or liked Ikovian or suddenly like fell into like seeing his majesty when he did what he did.
Interesting.
And, nobody came to mind. There's somebody who I feel like is waiting in the wings, who was, at least at the time, continually described as getting more and more voluptuous. It's because she was like aging. But the only person who really came to mind was Silver Fox.
Yeah, or Felicin. Wasn't Felicin younger? Like, didn't that happen to her too? But she's
been kidnapped somewhere. She's like in a castle somewhere.
She's out of the picture. Yeah. Interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she says that there's, she's human, and she says, "Oh, most Tistandi don't even hang out with us. It's like you and one other guy, that Endest Salon dude who just bargains for goods at the market." And then, yes, she does reveal that the Great Barrow is outside the realm of night, but that the Redeemer is not afraid of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows she knows all these things that he's like, well, how do you know this stuff? I don't like that you know this stuff. I'm not a fan of you knowing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I want to talk to you, but I don't want you to know things.
Right. Yeah.
And then she's like, you better get back to your little game. He's waiting. You're usually on time.
Yeah, he's worried about you because you're never late. And he's like, how do you know all this stuff? Is it your God that's telling you, or do you know it some other way? Yeah. So anyway, interesting that it feels like Itkovian is about to become ascended into godhood, and everybody's sort of waiting next to his little egg for him to hatch. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
It's under the incubator.
Yeah. The Itkovian baby. I tried for it. I went for it. So then we have my third favorite scene of these chapters. Is the final scene of chapter 4. And another character who we literally haven't seen since Memories of Ice, I think. Hasn't been mentioned since Memories of Ice. And that is Callor. Whoo, the once king of thousands, the dreadful tyrant.
The immortal old guy, just getting older by the second.
Just traipsing
Slayer
across
of
the
Whiskey
plains.
Jack, piece of trash.
Yeah, that's right. Betrayer of Whiskey Jack. Good point. And he's just, this is such a great thing. I pulled part of this as well. It's such a great scene where he's just trudging across the plains, just unhappy with everything. Everything sucks.
Yeah.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. But he's moving and he kills a rabbit and just like, ugh.
Oh yeah. I was trying to think of something that it reminded me of, that like him being like banal, like everything being that, and sort of the repetition of that. There's something that's like itching at the side of my brain that the only thing I can think of is Dio Brando from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Always says, I think he says useless all the time. Mura. To everything, that's like his response is like useless. And so that sort of repetition of like something is not only like lame or bad, but like beneath me in such an extreme way. Like being like everything is banal is like everything, man. It's like there's such an attitude to that and like world perspective to just calling everything this. It's like, yeah, I guess I get it. You're old. You've seen it all.
Yeah.
It's I love that as a core piece of that scene.
And that's basically the end of chapter 4. I'm loving how, obviously we're in the 8th novel now. So we're in the end game now almost, it feels. but it's so awesome how, you know, the sort of rhythm of these books has been to introduce new things and to constantly be in a new place and new cast of characters and new threat. And now it feels like, oh, Erikson set Callor over here, set Itkovian over here,
Yeah.
set Ralignam over here, set, you know, all these Gruntle over here. And they've been just patiently, they've all been put in place. They all have very interesting histories that we're super familiar with now. And we have connections to all these characters, and they have all been sort of put on the board.
Yeah.
And now we're like, okay, now we're picking up all these pieces that we've set into play. And it really feels exciting to have so much history with all these characters and revisiting them and picking them back up and going, okay, I told you about these guys for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've had them in the back of your head. I haven't touched them for a while, but here we go.
I wonder if there'll be like a mirroring with, I forget the name of the game already, Kef Compare.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they play this game and there is like this broader strategy and these pieces, and it's like a war game, like kind of like chess is a war game, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And I wonder if there'll be sort of a mirroring of that feeling, because as you describe it, it is interesting to see that there's specifically a game with pieces setting on this board that sort of is resonant. It's cool.
Totally. I think of it as like Risk, like a game of Risk almost, you know?
Yeah.
Where, you know, people can get knocked out or subsumed by more powerful factions. And these two guys always play with other people, but they're so unimportant because they never last until the end. So good.
I think of a game that I made when I was in university that was a mix of Warhammer 40K and chess. Let me tell you, it was a banger.
Such good chapters. I have some fun quotes. I think I stole some of yours already. I apologize for that.
I have. Oh, don't worry about it. Because I'm like, man, I pulled so many quotes.
Yeah. I almost pulled entire scenes, but somehow refrained. Will you want to start?
I think you can start, because I think I just accidentally clicked one from the wrong chapter.
Oh, okay.
I did. Yeah, go ahead.
I think.
Okay.
Oh,
I got one.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, go.
Yeah. Mine is like a pretty long quote, but I just loved it, which is literally the first scene setting in chapter 3 of the beauty to the disgust.
Love it.
On this morning, so fair and fresh with the warm breeze coming down off the lake, there were arrivals. Was a city a living thing? Did it possess eyes? Could its senses be lit awake by the touch of footsteps? Did Darujistan on that fine morning look in turn upon those who set their gazes upon it? Arrivals grand and modest, footsteps less than a whisper, whilst others trembled to the very bones of the sleeping goddess. Were such things the beat of the city's heart? But no, cities do not possess eyes, nor any other senses. Cut stone and hardened plaster, wood beams and cornice facades, walled gardens, quiescent pools beneath trickling fountains, all was insensate to the weathering traffic of its denizens. A city could know no hunger, could not rise from sleep, nor even twist uneasy in its grave. Leave such things, then, to a short, rotund man seated at a table at the back of the Phoenix Inn, in the midst of an expansive breakfast, to pause with a mouth crammed full of pastry and spiced apple to suddenly choke, eyes bulging, face flushing scarlet, then launching a spray of pie across the table into the face of a regretfully hungover Mies, who, now wearing the very pie she had baked the day before, simply lifted her bleary gaze and settled a basilisk regard upon the hacking, wheezing man opposite her. If words were necessary, then she would have used them. The man coughed on, tears streaming from his eyes. Salty arrived with a cloth and began wiping gently the mess from a motionless, almost statuesque Mies.
Incredible prose. My favorite little phrase in there is settled a basilisk's regard on him.
So good.
What a phrase. A basilisk's regard. I love that. It's so good. It's like how these books are so amazing and they somehow keep getting better. It's like the writing is so It's depressing how good
You
it
always
is.
describe it as depressing.
It's so intimidating to me. It's like, how is it possible?
Ugh.
All right. Here's this is a scene. This is a quote from that Nander section where he's kind of musing on civilization. Was the ephemeral visage of civilization reason for fear, or perhaps relief? That all victories were ultimately transitory in the face of patient nature might well be cause for optimism. No wound was too deep to heal, no outrage too horrendous to one day be irrelevant. Nander wondered if he had discovered the face of the one true God, not else but time, this ever-changing and yet changeless tyrant, against whom no creature could win, before whom even trees, stone, and air must one day bow. There would be a last dawn, a last sunset, each kneeling in final surrender. Yes, time was indeed God, playing the same games with lowly insects as it did with mountains and the fools who would carve fastnesses into them. At peace with every scale, pleased by the rapid patter of a rat's heart and the slow sighing of devouring wind against stone, content with a star's burgeoning light and the swift death of a raindrop on a desert floor.
So good.
It's just amazing.
I love that scene also because like a moment later, his buddy's like, "Hey, you look like you're thinking about stuff," and he's like, "Yeah, I think I like just like came to a crazy like I found God basically."
Yeah,
And he's
I
like,
had a revelation.
You want to tell me about it?" And he's like, "No, you don't want this God."
Yeah.
Just
It's
like
got sucked. It's like you don't have any choice.
yeah,
But also,
yeah, it's like the internalization of like this revelation that he's having, being like, "Wow," and then being like,
yeah.
"What's up?" And him like, "Nah, nothing."
Do you have another one?
I do.
have-
All
okay.
mine are so long, so I'm just going to do
Mine's
one
super
more.
long too. My next one is super long too. It's go ahead.
So mine is in the Azoth house with Rayst and Relic. Yeah, I'll start here. I should correct one of your assumptions. I did not dwell in here alone, although I do so now, excepting you, of course. But your company I do not expect to last. That legion of headlong fools you call your people no doubt pine for your return. Blood awaits your daggers, your pouch thirsts for coins that will fill it with every life you steal, and so on. If you weren't alone before, Rayst. Ah, yes, I distracted myself with notions of human futility. The master of the Deck of Dragons was, in the common language, a squatter here in the house for a time. And then he left. Not a prisoner then, this master. No, like you, indifferent to my miserable fate. Will you now exploit your privilege, assassin? What do you mean? Will you now leave, never to return, abandoning me to eternal solitude with naught but cobwebs in my bed, at bare cupboards in the kitchen, with mocking drafts and the occasional faint clatter of dead branches against the shutters, and the odd scream or two as something unpleasant is devoured by earth and root in the yard? Will you simply leave me to this world, assassin? Ralik Nam stared at the Jagged. I had no idea my unconscious presence so eased your loneliness, Rayst. Such insensitivity on your part would not surprise me. My answer is yes, I will indeed leave you to your world. You lack gratitude. Ralik drew his cloak around his shoulders and checked his gear. There was old blood, but it simply flaked off like black snow. Forgive me. Thank you, Rayst, for the kick in the head.
So good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I love it. I love how I think of Rayst like Godzilla, like he was just they all of Gardens of the Moon culminated in them resurrecting this guy, like freeing him from his prison, and he comes
like
up like Godzilla out of the sea and just gonna be trampling the city, and we're all scared, and now he's like, I'm lonely and nobody wants to hang out with me anymore.
Oh man, he's like, yeah, I was a tyrant, and now
Yeah,
check me out. I just love that idea of being like, you're going to leave me to all of this misery. And he's like, oh, I didn't realize that me being literally unconscious.
Yeah, like I was keeping you company by sleeping on the floor. Great. Yeah, I am leaving, dude. Later. Thanks for the kick in the head. It's so good. Okay, this is I love this one. This is kind of long too. Too much weight was given to history as far as Callor was concerned. One's own history, that of peoples, cultures, landscapes. What value peering at past errors and judgment, at mischance and carelessness, when the only reward after all that effort was regret? Bah! Regret was the refuge of fools, and Callor was no fool. He had lived out his every ambition, after all, lived each one out until all color was drained away, leaving a bleached, wan knowledge that there wasn't much in life truly worth the effort to achieve it, that the rewards proved ephemeral, nay, worthless. Every emperor in every realm, through all of time itself, soon found that the lofty title and all its power was an existence devoid of humor. Even excess and indulgences paled eventually, and the faces of the dying, the tortured, well, they were all the same, and not one of those twisted expressions vouchsafed a glimmer of revelation, the discovery of some profound, last breath secret that answered all the great questions. No, every face simply pulled into itself, shrank, and recoiled even as agony tugged and stretched. And whatever the bulging eyes saw at the last moment was, Callor now understood, something utterly banal. Now there was an enemy, banality. The domain of the witless, the proud tower of the stupid. One did not need to be an emperor to witness it. Scan the faces of people encircling an overturned carriage, the gleam of their eyes as they strain and stretch to catch a glimpse of blood, of broken limbs, relishing some pointless tragedy that tops up their murky inkwells of life. Watch, yes, those vultures of grief, and then speak of noble humanity so wise and virtuous. Unseen by the ravens or condors, Callor now bared his teeth in a bleak smile, as if seeking to emulate the face of that tragically fallen idiot, pinned there beneath the carriage wheel, seeing the last thing he would see and finding it in the faces of the gawkers and thinking, oh, look at you all, so banal, so banal.
I'm so glad you kept going. It's like, what a piece of garbage. It's so delightfully cynical.
I know. It really is, right? It's like, look at it's such a great perspective. It's in contrast with some of the compassion and hope that's on display in Malazan. Is this, you have this deeply cynical guy who's been around for so long that just none of it matters. And he had everything. He had all of it. And it didn't matter. It still didn't matter. None of it matters. Mm-hmm. And I love the sort of, it clearly wink, wink, nudge, nudge to rubberneckers in modern times in, looking at a car accident, right? Mm-hmm. He transposes it to a wagon overturned, but like, it's clearly like people just looking at a car accident, desperately wanting to feel something, anything. That I love that. I flubbed the line, but that beautiful line about wanting to fill the inkwells of their, whatever the line is.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so perfect. It's just so beautifully expressed, that cynicism, as you said, it's incredible.
Especially because like that perspective of like the idea that rubberneckers just want to feel something.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's his, going all the way back to like the narration of that.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people in scenes like that looking to help, looking to see what's wrong. Not like the cynicism of everybody's there just with the same kind of like the worst possible read on the situation.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about it in the past on the show, but not in a hot minute, where in animation, one of the principles is this concept of appeal and making something appealing. And it's not about making something appealing as like attractive or cute but like it should feel like the thing it is. This whole section, it feels like the thing that it is. And it makes it appealing for what Callor represents.
Completely. And he's describing himself, right? He has such disdain for these people, but he also has that POV, right? The thing we hate most is what we are, right?
Yeah.
And him just being, I have been to the mountaintop, I have seen, and there's nothing there. I murdered and then later on when he, there's a great line when he kills the rabbit and he doesn't look at it in the eye so that the rabbit doesn't get what so many of his victims got, which is seeing his cold, dead eyes as their last image before death. And the contrast of dead from being dead or dead from being alive. It's just so good.
So good.
Book good.
Book good.
And fun times talking about it with you, Lana, and all of our community. Thank you, folks, for being with us. Please don't hesitate to send us new topics to talk about at the top of the show, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. Well, we got 2 more chapters next week, 2 throughout the run of Toll the Hounds, which is such a lovely, I don't have to think about it, pace, which is wonderful. And lots of juicy stuff to dig into. So we will be back next week. Hope you have a great one. Don't forget to dance.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages. It's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends. Join the book club.